passed. Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals Bill. Members' motion with no legislative effect. Ms. Maggie Chan will move a motion on examining and reviewing the Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance, encouraging and promoting public education and publicity on building up good family values, family education, and family tradition. Mr. Kenneth LEUNG will move an amendment to the motion. This council will proceed to a joint debate on the motion and the amendment. Later, I will first call upon Ms. Maggie Chan to speak and move the motion. Then I will call upon Mr. Kenneth LEUNG to speak, but he may not move the amendment at this stage. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. And I'll call upon Ms. Maggie Chan to speak and move the motion. Press Ms. Maggie Chan. President, I move that the motion is printed on the agenda be passed. Now, there are various obscene and indecent articles circulating in the media, and parents are concerned that their children may be affected. So can the ordinance, the reference ordinance, that is the Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance, can it really effectively control such articles? And what about the Obscene Articles Tribunal? Is there a wide enough representation? So the motion seeks to review the existing situation and looks for solution. We want to protect the mental and physical health of young children, and we want to promote good family values, good family education, and family tradition. At the same time, we want to ensure freedom of expression. Now, there are 3 classes of indecent articles. The OAT, Obscene Articles Tribunal, anyone who's lived in Hong Kong for more than 7 years, and if they can speak both English and Chinese, and they could become adjudicators. And there is a chief... there is a presiding magistrate, and there are 2 adjudicators that sit on each panel, adjudication panel. They will consider standards of morality and decency and propriety that are generally accepted by reasonable members of the community, the dominant effect of the article matters, and so on. Now, in September and October this year, I conducted an online questionnaire survey. I received 616 replies. So the findings are 81% of those surveyed were concerned that underage children have been affected by indecent and obscene articles. More than 40% of the interviewers said they are not familiar with the classification system. 82% of those surveyed say they do not know how the OAT determine whether an article is indecent or obscene. And then there is a prominent figure to note here: more than 90% of those surveyed do not know how indecent and obscene articles are regulated online. And more than 9% of the surveyed believe that the composition of the OAT could represent the general public. And then more than 80% of those surveyed believe that we need to expand the membership of OAT, and there should be people from different sectors. 83% of the surveyed, of those surveyed, believe that there's need to train adjudicators. And there is a figure that's particularly low. Less than 4% believes that inquiries, regulation, and complaint channels about online indecent and obscene articles are insufficient, are sufficient, or that means the channels are not sufficient. And then more than 80% believe the government needs to review the ordinance. And more than 93% of those surveyed believe the government needs to step up publicity and public education to protect young people from the ill effects of indecent and obscene articles, so we could promote family values, tradition, and so on. And then from the survey findings, we see that most people are worried that young people will be affected by indecent and obscene articles. They do not know well the classification system. They don't know how articles are regulated, especially with online articles. And then there is not sufficient transparency with the operation of the OAT. And then as for members of OAT, there's a narrow representation. And then there are also views that professional training of educators is very important. Now, on making inquiries or lodging complaints and so on about these articles, there are not sufficient channels. Only 4% believe there are sufficient channels. So that's why there's need for better education and publicity. That's why I'd like to make some suggestions. One, we should review the regulatory regime. This is not the first time I'm raising this point. Many years ago, in 2008 and 2009, and then 2013, the government conducted public consultation on amending the legislation. And then in 2015 and 2019, many years later, the panel on information technology and broadcasting was consulted. And then the government presented proposals. That was 2019. Now we're in 2024. So I asked the government to complete the review of the legislation as soon as possible. So this legislation to keep up with the digital age, and then we could protect the young people and children. Second point, we need to review the composition of educators of the OAT. There are 4 sub-points here. One, we need to review the transparency of the work of OAT. We need to consider their representativeness and consistency in terms of their determinations. And also, we need to expand the size of panels. At the same time, we need to increase the membership as a whole. There should be 2 different types of panel. Now there's just one type. That is self-recommended or appointed adjudicators, and then the number should be increased from the 700 now to over 1,000. And third point, we need to bring in representatives from more sectors so that they could better represent public views. Fourthly, we need to review the self-recommended applications of adjudicators, and we have to consider replacement standards and so on. The third large point is that I will ask law enforcement bodies to step up patrols, and there should be more channels for receiving complaints, such as WhatsApp, WeChat channel, QR code, provision of QR code, and so on. So there was more complaint channels, then we could enhance the deterrent effect of the bill, of the legislation. And and then we need to do more publicity on promoting family values, family tradition, and so on. And so as we promote family education, we should publicize the legislation. So when we must regulate movies and news articles and so on, then the Office for Film, Newspaper, and Article Administration must further expand the scope of work. Now, I hope members will give their invaluable views on this motion and ask for your support too. Thank you.
係陳曼琪議員嘅議案，予以通過。梁毓偉議員。
多謝主席。I now propose a question to you that Ms. Maggie Chan's motion be passed. Mr. Kenneth LEUNG. Thank you, President. Ms. Maggie Chan has already said the relevant provisions were proposed in 2015 and 2019, but the proposals focused on the penalties. In the past decade, the way information is disseminated has changed. Our life is closely related to the internet, so we must prohibit wrong information or negative information from being disseminated in Hong Kong. Whether online or offline, there's a wide range of information. Children and young people should be better protected. On the internet, there is a wide array of information involving violence, pornography, and fraud. In the long run, their psychological health will be affected. Earlier on online media platforms, some young people were enticed to provide their nude pictures, and they were sent on instant messaging software. After children were affected, then these cases were brought to light. There were also cases of social media about nude pictures, that is sexual harassment online. So we do need to tackle these problems. We need to formulate strict regulations, and we also need to step up cyber patrol. We need to use new technologies to ban these negative contents. We need to forge a healthy and civilized online environment for children and young people to grow healthily. We must also protect victims from secondary harm. We also need to instill a correct concept on gender relationship and proper values in children and young people. We need to step up their resilience and the way they react to these information. Children and young people are subject to peer influence. There are groups with over 10,000 people sharing upstairs pictures. Victims include secondary school students. These pictures also have become the open secret, so to speak, among students. So we need to build a proper channel as well as instill a correct concept on students. They need to have empathy and effective communication skills. Their purpose is to forge a healthy online and offline world. With correct values, then children will be equipped with sufficient capacity not to fall victim to the wrong information, so they won't spread such information. Parents are key in relation to equipping students and young people with correct and proper values on gender relationship. Family education and family tradition have a huge impact on children. Parents need to provide guidance. Schools can, through PTA, that is Parent-Teacher Association, to hold workshops, seminars to enhance the self-protection awareness among students and young people so that they won't fall victim to such information easily. Different sectors of the community should also take part in the protection of children in a digitalized world. President, in the face of such obscene and indecent information, we need to step up our efforts in preventing such information from being spread. We also need to help young people to protect themselves. We need to instill a correct concept on gender relationship and proper values in children and young people so that society can nurture responsible and empathetic young people. I so submit. Thank you, President.
Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development. President, I thank Ms. Maggie Chan for moving this motion and Mr. Kenneth Leung for his amendment, so that we have the opportunity to explain the enforcement mechanism under the Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance to members and listen to members' thoughts and suggestions on the control of obscene and indecent articles. It is the government's policy to protect children and young people from the harmful effects of indecent articles while maintaining a free flow of information. We've been working towards this policy goal in various ways, including enforcement, promotion, public education, and communication with industry stakeholders. The purpose is to prevent the distribution and dissemination of obscene and indecent information on the Internet and raise the awareness of protecting our children and young people from harmful content. Next, I'll briefly introduce the regulatory regime under the ordinance, the work of the Obscene Articles Tribunal, and the current enforcement situation of the ordinance. Regulatory regime. The ordinance aims to regulate the publication or display of articles with obscene or indecent content in Hong Kong. Newspapers, magazines, comic books, videotapes, video compact discs, digital video discs, audio tapes, and articles published on the Internet, including images and videos, are all covered by the ordinance. According to the ordinance, obscene and indecent articles include those with violent, depraved, or repulsive content. Articles can be classified into Class 1, neither obscene nor indecent articles which can be published to anyone. B. Class 2 or indecent articles which cannot be published to minors but can be published to persons aged 18 or above under the conditions specified by the law. And C. Class 3 obscene articles which are completely prohibited from publication. It is important to note that the classification of articles under the ordinance is not the same as the film classification system with which we are all familiar. To avoid confusion between the two systems, I'd like to take today's opportunity to clarify these two systems. Simply put, Class 1 articles, neither obscene nor indecent under the ordinance, are equivalent to Category 1, Category 2A, and Category 2B films under the Film Censorship Ordinance, and their publication is not restricted. For Class 2 indecent articles under the ordinance, they are equivalent to Category 3 films, both of which have age restrictions and can only be published to or viewed by persons aged 18 or above. Class 3 obscene articles are completely prohibited from publication, similar to films that are refused exhibition under the Film Censorship Ordinance. Work of the Obscene Articles Tribunal. The Obscene Articles Tribunal is appointed under Section 6 of the Ordinance. It is mainly responsible for classifying articles and determining their nature. It consists of a presiding magistrate and not less than 2 adjudicators. In determining whether an article is obscene or indecent, the OAT shall have regard to the standards of morality generally accepted by reasonable members of the community, the dominant effect of the article as a whole, the class or age of the likely recipients, the location at which the article is displayed, and whether the article has an honest purpose, such as for academic or educational purpose. On reflecting the moral standards generally accepted by reasonable members of society, to ensure that the standards adopted by the tribunal are representative and conform to social norms as much as possible, Section 5 of the Ordinance stipulates that persons aged 18 or above who are ordinarily resident in Hong Kong and have so resided for not less than 7 years and who are proficient in written English or Chinese are eligible to be appointed as members of the panel of adjudicators. In other words, persons of different gender, age, and occupation can apply to become members. According to data provided by the judiciary, as of September 2024, there are about 770 panel adjudicators, with men and women accounting for about 70% and 30% respectively. About 70% of the adjudicators reported having higher education or above, and another 20% or so reported being professionals. We understand that members have different views on the composition of the tribunal, including the need to enhance its representativeness and consistency of its decisions. Members of the public should be replaced by professionals in the classification of articles. In fact, we reviewed the ordinance in 2019, and in response to the views of various sectors of community, the judiciary implemented a series of arrangements that year to enhance the representativeness of the tribunal, including the following. A. Under general circumstances, the number of adjudicators participating in the classification has increased from 2 to 4. 2. The total number of adjudicators has increased from about 500 to about 750. And 3. The term of office for newly appointed adjudicators has been reduced from a maximum of 9 years to 6 years. In addition, the tribunal has taken measures to allow more adjudicators to participate in the classification of articles to reflect the generally accepted moral standards of society, including the following. 1. When there is a need to hold a hearing, the tribunal randomly selects adjudicators from the panel list through a computer system. Now, after performing the duties, an adjudicator will not be selected again within the next 12 months. At the same time, the presiding magistrate will brief the newly appointed adjudicators the first time they attend the hearing, thereby enhancing the consistency of classification standards and the efficiency of the tribunal's work. If considered necessary, the tribunal may also consider the opinions of aesthetic or literary experts. The tribunal's classification of articles inevitably involves a certain degree of subjective judgment and cultural, social standards which change over time. We do not expect any change to eliminate controversial cases. The tribunal processed 86 applications for classification in the past 3 years, none of which involved subsequent review or appeal. This shows that the tribunal's classification generally meets the standards of the public, and the relevant arrangements are well established and effective. When the tribunal receives an article for classification, it will arrange a preliminary hearing as soon as possible and make an interim classification. The publisher and owner of the article or the applicant for classification can request the tribunal to hold a full hearing within 5 working days after the interim classification takes effect in order to review the interim classification. The full hearing will be a public hearing. If no application for a full hearing has been received, the tribunal will publish the final classification based on its interim classification. Any party to the proceedings before the tribunal may appeal to the Court of First Instance of the High Court against the tribunal's decision on a point of law within 14 days. The above avenue of review and appeal provided under the ordinance is highly transparent. It allows the public to have a more comprehensive understanding of the standards adopted in the classification process. We will continue to listen to the views of various sectors of the community and keep in view the implementation of the ordinance as well as the community's views. Enforcement of the ordinance. The ordinance is currently enforced by the Hong Kong Police Force, the Customs and Excise Department, and the Office for Film, Newspaper and Article Administration, OFNAA. The police is responsible for cracking down on the sale of obscene articles in the market. It also conducts joint enforcement operations with the OFNAA on a regular basis. The CNA department is responsible for intercepting obscene and indecent articles at the border and combating related crimes in daily anti-piracy operations. OFNAA is responsible for inspecting various sales outlets, monitoring publications on sale in the market, cracking down on the sale of indecent articles, promoting the ordinance, and handling related complaints. If OFNAA receives a complaint about obscene or indecent articles, it will conduct an initial investigation based on the guidelines provided in Section 10 of the ordinance. It will first refer to past classification results of similar articles by the tribunal before classifying the article in question. If apparently the article can be classified as Class 2, OFNAA will take appropriate follow-up actions, including ensuring that the relevant articles comply with the conditions imposed by the tribunal under the ordinance. If the case involves Class 3 articles, OFNAA will directly refer the case to the police for follow-up. If OFNAA is not certain about the classification of the article in question, it will submit the article to the tribunal for classification. The government has always been committed to handling public inquiries or complaints effectively. OFNAA will process and respond to any complaints or inquiries received according to established procedures. Regarding the regulation of obscene or indecent content on the Internet, given the vast amount of online information and its rapid changes, the government has always adopted a complaint-driven and co-regulatory approach to handle complaints regarding online publication of obscene or indecent articles. The government, together with the Hong Kong Internet Service Providers Association, or Hong Kong ISPA, have formulated a set of guidelines titled Code of Practice Statement on Regulation of Obscene and Indecent Material for the industry's self-compliance. It provides that materials published with Class 2 content on the Internet must be accompanied by a specified on-screen warning message on the web page before allowing Internet users aged 18 or above to view the information. If an ISP becomes aware that an internet user has published Class 3 articles, the ISP should delete or block the relevant articles to stop viewers in Hong Kong from accessing the information. Although the Code of Practice only requires a warning message to be displayed on the screen for Class 2 content before allowing Internet users aged 18 or above to view it, we have noticed that some platforms, such as YouTube, have taken additional measures. For example, they require users to log in to an account registered by somebody aged 18 or above before they can browse the relevant content, thereby further safeguarding children and adolescents. Statistics related to the ordinance. In fact, the ordinance provides an effective enforcement mechanism to protect children and adolescents from the influence of harmful articles. Allow me to illustrate with some figures. In terms of enforcement action, OFNAA has inspected stalls and shops selling video discs, magazines, etc. approximately 200,000 times in the past 3 years, reviewed a total of 910,000 articles, and taken enforcement action against shops contravening the ordinance. They seized approximately 7,000 obscene and indecent articles and prosecuted the individuals. A total of 106 summonses were issued with close to a 90% conviction rate. According to police data, in the same period, 108 people were prosecuted for the offense of publishing an obscene article, 107 of whom were convicted, facing imprisonment terms up to 1 year and 4 months. Regarding online content, OFNAA also actively inspects content online. If necessary, it refers suspected obscene or indecent articles found to the tribunal for classification so as to take appropriate follow-up action. In addition to proactive inspections by law enforcement agencies, the government also relies on the sector and the public for more effective crackdowns on the publication of obscene or indecent articles. Members of the public can inquire or complain about these articles to the relevant departments through telephone, fax, email, and the 1823 hotline. From 2021 to September 2024, OFNAA received 271 public complaints about the publication of obscene and indecent articles. The number of complaints received each year remains steadily at below 100. OFNAA processes complaints according to the mechanism I mentioned earlier. In recent months, a media outlet complained that some videos on an overseas video sharing platform were suspected of contravening the ordinance. We've completed the processing of the complaints. Among them, 13 video clips were classified as Class 3 obscene articles, 88 videos were classified as Class 2 indecent articles by the tribunal. After receiving the request from the law enforcement agencies, the relevant platform deleted or blocked all 13 videos classified as Class 3 articles to stop them from being played in Hong Kong. As for all the videos classified as Class 2 articles, the platform also complied with the conditions imposed by the tribunal under Section 82C of the ordinance. That means they have taken restrictive measures by requiring users to log in before viewing to ensure that only those aged 18 or above can view these videos. Displaying a warning message before playing the video or simply deleting the videos. OFNAA has maintained contact with the complainant and has also replied to the media outlets regarding the final classification of the videos. In fact, overseas online platforms have always been willing to comply with the requests of the OFNAA or the police. For example, in the case mentioned above, with an average of 2 working days after receiving the letter from the law enforcement agencies, the relevant platform removed access to all videos classified as Class 3 by Hong Kong users. For Class 2 articles, the platform also added warning messages and set age restrictions for all videos as required by the law enforcement agencies. We have not identified any delay in implementing the requests of the OFNAA or the police. This demonstrates the effectiveness of the current enforcement under the ordinance. We often emphasize that to establish correct values for children and adolescents, the joint efforts of all sectors of society are indispensable. We strongly agree that education is the first line to enhance children's and adolescents' ability to discern information. Apart from leveraging technology in learning, they can also learn to use the internet wisely and protect themselves from harmful content on social media or online platforms. Therefore, in addition to regulation and supervision, we will also strive to strengthen public education and promotion. In fact, OFNAA has always been committed to implementing and promoting work in this regard, including educating children and adolescents about the importance of healthy information and enhancing their awareness and ability to resist harmful content, as well as strengthening the role of parents in guiding their children to use the internet correctly. I will share with members more details and the progress in my concluding remarks. And apart from that, the SCL government will continue to call on the industry to jointly protect children and adolescents from the influence of obscene and indecent content. President, I will give a more detailed response after listening to members. I so submit. Thank you.
Mr. Duncan Chiu. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the bill of Ms. Maggie Chan and the amendment made by Mr. Kenneth Leung. Of course, we need to uphold our moral standard and protect children and young people from being corrupted of the objectionable material. So the Secretary mentioned the 3 classification system, that is Class 1 neither obscene nor indecent, Class 2 indecent, Class 3 obscene. They also mentioned the Secretary also mentioned 770 adjudicators and so on. Just now, Ms. Maggie Chan also mentioned whether there is any loophole in relation to the subjectivity of the panel or a lack of consistency in relation to the classification system. Honestly, from time to time, there are complaints from members of the public. Some Class 1 movies actually overstep the line. There may be indecent contents in the video. So some members of the public cast out on the classification system. Probably workload is heavy. So there may be misclassification of the materials. Hence the need to enhance the existing system and mechanism. We need to be more objective and fair. That is to prevent any subjectivity of the panel of adjudicators affecting the results of the classification, exposing young people to indecent or obscene materials. The UST is working on the AI big model. We need to consider whether we should leverage more technologies. I've talked to the team all over the years. How should we define excessive foul language, nudity, obscene, and so on? We expect it will take 6 months for us to develop the AI system. Then we'll be able to classify all movies or videos with the AI instead of manual labor or instead of a panel of adjudicators. That way we can save a lot of time, and we can also save a lot of administrative costs. We can more effectively exercise the 3 classification system. Is it a perfect system? It's been in operation for a decade. Honestly, I'm not sure how to classify Class 2A, 2B. Class 3 may be more obvious. We have 12 plus, 16 plus, and 18 plus in other countries. Is it clearer to classify the materials with the age? Sometimes the Class 2 is quite ambiguous. We don't quite understand the classification. We can use AI to classify movies. Then we can decide whether the materials are suitable to be watched by a certain age group. If the administration would like to contact the relevant team, I can help you liaise with the relevant team. And I believe the end product of the team will help us develop into a good smart city, or even we can export the tool to other countries. We can consider it. This is my proposal, and I hope the administration will consider it. I so submit. I speak in support of the motion and the amendment. Dr. Teck Chi Yuen. Thank you, President. In reviewing the Control of Obscene and Indecent Article Ordinance COIAO, these are my views. To protect children and young people from objectionable materials, our mechanism is subject to challenges. The COIAO was enacted in 1981. It was supposed to regulate control over physical materials, but we need to move with the times. Recent examples show us online materials have a major difference from physical materials in the real world, exposing children and young people to objectionable materials. And this will also affect the building up of good family values, education, and tradition. We need to protect children and young people from different perspectives. We need to have a comprehensive mechanism, such as enhancing the classification mechanism. For contents not suitable to be watched by young people and children, we need to add warning words. We also need to promote cybersecurity education. We need to educate children on the relevant risks. We also need to help parents to choose suitable content for their children. In addition, we also need to step up internet education. We need to introduce the relevant curriculum into the school curriculum. That is internet literacy. We need to enhance the self-protection awareness among young children so that they will understand the importance of protecting their own privacy. We also need to enhance their awareness of cyberbullying. Then they will be able to protect themselves even on the internet. The administration should collect feedback from children so that they can also express their views. The administration can consider setting up the relevant task group to tap their views, encouraging children and young people to report on objectionable materials proactively. We can help them to become responsible internet users. We need to provide parents with suitable guidelines, prepare education resources, hold workshops, compile handbooks, provide internet training, as well as enhance liaison between schools and parents. We can build a parent support network so that they can exchange their views in the face of the challenges in the modern era. Different countries in Europe have also laid down relevant legislation. In the UK, they have the relevant law. That is Digital Service Act. The EU also has a similar law. They are called priority to protecting children. We can draw on these practices. We also need to update our existing legislation. We shouldn't use the old practice to regulate the materials on the internet. We need to move with the times, flexibly respond to challenges. On public education, the government should devote more resources to shaping or instilling a correct concept. We need to encourage the creation of responsible contents and encourage society to protect children. With continuing education, we need to protect children and forge awareness in society. Protecting children is the collective responsibility of society. We need to move with the times. We need to draw on overseas experience to build a more comprehensive protection network. We also need to build up good family values, education, and tradition in order to build a healthy environment for children. I hope the administration can work faster in response to society's needs. I support the motion and the amendment. Thank you, President.
Mr. Robert Lee. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Ms. Maggie Chan's motion and Mr. Kenneth Leung's amendment. The Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance, the ordinance, was enacted to protect youngsters and children from the ill effect of indecent and obscene materials. At the same time, we want to protect freedom of expression. Now, young people are spending more and more time on the internet, so it's easy for them to come across objectionable materials online. Now, in every interview, about with children and young people, we find that half of those surveyed said that they have come across violent images online. More than 30% said that they have come across sexual content on the internet. So that's why the government needs to tackle seriously the impact of objectionable materials on online on youngster and children, and then. Because such materials could be easily accessible to youngsters and children online. Now, on the regulation of obscene and indecent articles, government has always relied on complaints. So together with the reference sector, there's co-regulation in dealing with and make ways to handle complaints lodged. Now, young people have ready access to social media these days, and there could be unsuitable content in social media, and it may affect the development of young people and children. So that's why the government needs to work step closer with social media platforms. Social media platforms need to see whether the users are adults in allowing certain content, and there must be effective measures to prevent youngsters and children from coming into contact with objectionable materials in social media. And then there must be a way to give more information to the public so they know how they could ask for the removal of indecent and obscene materials online. For example, steps to report objectionable advertisement and content. Now, of course, this is to protect children. We must not undermine the free flow of information in Hong Kong. And then there must be, if we want to promote good family values, family education, and tradition, we require the support of schools. So I agree, we need to impart the right values on young people about the gender, for instance. And then there could be a better design of teaching materials, so we could foster better collaboration between schools and families. And we could further promote good Chinese values and virtues, and then we could help uphold the standards of morality and decency. And then we must encourage parents to set an example too, and so they will teach their children how they could properly use the internet, and then children will learn to protect themselves. At the same time, they will have critical thinking, and they will adopt a responsible attitude in dealing with gender issues and gender relationship. And then there could be the government help to promote a better communication between parents and children. Now, there may be objectionable material information circulating in social media, so the government needs to give children better protection. And then there must be a timely review of the Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance. There must be review of the definition of indecency and obscenity, having regard to the prevailing social standards. And then of course, we need to impart the right values in children as well. So I speak. Mr. Scott Leung. Thank you. Many young people are addicted to their phones and computers. They come across information on the internet, and that is a challenge to parents who want to educate their children, and it may undermine family values in the long run. Now, there are media reports that maybe young people may share videos with nude content, but then the title of the video is not, consistent with the content in the video, and so people are exploiting gray areas to upload unsuitable videos, so they could get more hits. And I believe young underage people may also view such videos. Now, the Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance applies to all articles published in Hong Kong. That includes articles published online. But now the government relies mostly on complaints. So law enforcement bodies receive the complaints and they refer the article to the Obscene Articles Tribunal, OAT, for classification. And then we've heard some figures. There were 100 videos under complaint, but only 13 were classified as Class 2, less than 20%. And if it's Class 2 material, there's no need to remove the video as long as there are warnings attached. So if there is no proper guidance, is it right to allow Class 2 videos to circulate freely online? Because young people may be affected when they don't have proper guidance as they watch these videos. Now, internet service providers have to comply with the relevant legislation. They also have to follow a certain code of practice. So the government needs to step up regulation and monitoring of ISPs. The government should require ISPs to monitor their own platforms frequently, and then they must submit questionable articles for classification. And then ISPs may also impose their own warnings. This will help to stop the spread of objectionable materials among young people. We don't want the underage to have access to indecent and obscene materials, and because then it may lead them in the wrong way with their values. Now, determination is usually based on the subjective views of adjudicators. They may have different understanding of certain moral standards and so on. So therefore, there may be some consistent determination. So the determination and the reasons for the determination should be made public. This will enhance the transparency of the work of OAT as well as public confidence in the OAT. Now, parents have to guide their children as they grow up, but then parents often have to work. So that's why it's important that there is proper information given out by school. The government could do more publicity, for example, launching competitions, staging dramas, and so on, to teach parents and young people to stay away from indecent and obscene materials online. We must enhance their awareness of cybersecurity. Local organizations could also hold seminars and workshops and talks regularly. They should invite parents to attend, and so they will learn how to monitor the use of the internet by their children, and they could also help to filter out unsuitable materials. Now, very often there are titles that don't reveal the actual indecent content of material circulating online. So if there's no proper guidance to young people and children, their development may be affected if they come into contact with such materials. So we need to make sure that our next generation can grow up in a safe and healthy cyber environment. So I speak in support of the motion and the amendment. Thank you. Mr. Chen Kim-Paul. Now, the media may use pornography or certain photos with sexual content to draw attention to their materials, and there is not enough control and regulation online, so young people could easily come into contact with such materials. They are curious, but they don't have enough judgment and self-discipline, and they may indulge in the watching of such materials that will affect their development, and then it may also twist their values, and they may eventually commit sexual crimes. Now, I thank Ms. Maggie Chen for moving the motion and Mr. Kenneth Leung for moving his amendment, so we could debate this issue. Now, apart from the traditional print media, online materials are also subject to the Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance. The Obscene Articles Tribunal, OAT, is responsible for classifying articles and materials. but then their classification has sparked public controversies on many occasions. So OAT needs to adopt stringent standards. Some educators may have different standards compared to those of the general public, and then educators could actually be join the tribunal through self-recommendation, but then they may only get a turn to determine articles rather infrequently. Now, and as a result, they're not familiar with the standards, so there could be discrepancies in the classification of articles. But we need to make sure there's consistency, so young people don't come into contact with indecent and obscene articles. Now, if article is classified Class 3, then the relevant case or the American materials under complaint will be referred to the police, is to make sure that the materials could not be published in Hong Kong anymore. And then the Office for Film, Newspaper and Article Administration, OFNAA, may refer also the case to the overseas internet service providers, so on, for them to take action to remove the article. But for many platforms, they're not headquartered in Hong Kong, and there is lax regulation. So it's very difficult to enforce law with certain online platforms. That's why KPI should be set. The Hong Kong Police Force and the OFNAA should be required to review the handling procedure for videos on online platforms, and so that the questionable videos could be removed in a timely manner. Now, we also need to give guidance to young people, and so they have the right values about gender and sex, and they shouldn't come into contact with indecent materials too early an age. And sex education has to do with personal values, morality standards, and so on. So it should have a comprehensive coverage. And schools should also teach children how to handle gender relationship. They must learn to respect others and protect themselves. And parents should use the restricted mode on online platforms to filter out some unsuitable content for young people. Thank you.
Mr. Dennis Leung. President, I speak in support of the original motion and the amendment. The Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance seeks to regulate articles with obscene and indecent content to safeguard public morality standards and protect children and adolescents from accessing this information. The ordinance also seeks to ensure free flow of information. However, in this new era, I think the government should step up its efforts in promoting good family values, family education, and family tradition in order to ward off the impact of objectionable content on our young people. We should understand how their mental health will be impacted on. In 2008, the government conducted a comprehensive review of the Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance. 2 phases where public consultations were conducted. They were completed respectively in 2012 and 2017. At the Chief Executive in Council meeting in 2015, the Chief Executive directed that legislative amendments should be put in place to explore a new regulatory approach in relation to obscene and indecent articles online, as well as the complaint handling mechanism in relation to internet content. Now, there has not been any progress. I think the government should give us a timetable and the work's progress. There have been a number of blunders in relation to the classification mechanism, such as the Statute David in 2005 and the CUHK magazine, as well as some nude pictures in another case. Ultimately, the cases were taken to court for determination, and there have been doubts about the system in the community. We want our young people to thrive, but on the part of the government, schools, family, and young people, we should all make an effort. We should make sure that they don't have access to objectionable content, and we need to instill in them good family values by good family education and safeguarding family tradition. We also need to make sure that the legislation is kept up with the times, especially in this age of technology. We need to revamp the legislation. We need to undertake administrative reforms as well. As the chief executive put it there, reform is a continuous process. The next step is to enhance education. Only through education will we be able to instill in the minds of young people correct values, so that we instill in them the correct values and ideology. So that means we need to work on family education. It means education conducted by parents or relatives in a family to their children, and that's the first step for children to learn. Now, it's important because family is the most intimate environment for children, and parent is the most trustworthy group among children. So parents can take a targeted approach on the basis of the personality and the circumstances of children. Parents could help children develop their character and boost their confidence in order to help them enhance their social skills. We should also enhance parent-child relationships so that there is better family support for the children. However, it's not easy to achieve that. The SAR government should mobilize parents to play a stronger role in family education. This can be done through training courses. For example, we can provide them with training on communication skills. Parents can set a good example for their children, and there should also be an incentive mechanism or a carrot and stick approach to parenting. Together with good family values, good family education, and the work of the SAR government, I look forward to excellence in our next generation. Ms. Carmen Can. Thank you, President. I thank Ms. Maggie Chan for the original motion and Mr. Kenneth Leung for his amendment. Cap 390, that's the Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance, regulates the publication and display of obscene and indecent articles. It protects the minors from being influenced by harmful content without compromising the free flow of information. In relation to today's motion, I have the following suggestions. First, a timely review of the ordinance should be conducted. The Obscene Articles Tribunal is empowered under the ordinance to conduct classification and determination of articles into obscene or indecent. Now, as mentioned in Ms. Maggie Chan's original motion, there is a lack of transparency about the operation of the tribunal, and there are lots of concerns. According to media reports, the tribunal may adopt different standards because it operates on the basis of the guidance provided by permanent magistrate and the subjective judgments of adjudicators. I am not sure whether the morality standards are accepted by the present-day society. A clearer a set of guidelines should be laid down for reference by adjudicators. We should enhance the mechanism. At the moment, it's a complaint-driven approach together with co-regulatory approach with the industry. We should enhance the mechanism. The Hong Kong ISP Association makes regular reports to the administration. Now, there are avenues for the public to complain about these articles. Apart from the usual channels, an online platform should be set up. Members of the public should be able to use instant messaging apps in order to make complaints about the extensive dissemination of harmful content. The Privacy Commissioner yesterday published a joint global statement together with the privacy watchdogs from around the world. It talks about privacy protection of personal data privacy. It also lays down a set of guidelines for the industry. For example, AI should be deployed to help the administration prevent unlawful interception of information. AI should be used on major platforms to stop illegal use and dissemination of information. Now, be it the personal data privacy or protection of dissemination of information, it is a global trend that a joint approach should be taken so that major internet platforms can exercise self-discipline and regulation. My third point is that we need to enhance instill in the minds of young people the correct concept on gender relationship and proper values. Now, apart from improving CAP 390, we also need to enhance education and guidance, especially the subject of our protection efforts, that's children and young people. That means we should instill in them proper values, and that is what Mr. Kenneth Leung talks about in his amendment, instilling a correct concept on gender relationship and proper values in children and young people. The third plenary session emphasizes the building up of good family values, good education, and family tradition. President Xi gave a talk to the Federation of Women's Association in China, and he talks about providing guidance on different family matters. And there are 3 points in this outlook. To save time, I'm not going to repeat the points. In short, the marital laws in Hong Kong and in the mainland is that we safeguard monogamous relationships, man and wife. It also demonstrates the traditional Chinese values. Family is key to maintaining stability and harmony of our society and our country. We should avoid any laws that may harm the harmony of our society. The Good Family Contest will be held next year, and this is a very good initiative. Once again, I thank Ms. Maggie Chan's motion and Mr. Kenneth Leung's amendment for us to have this opportunity to debate on this very important issue. I support the motion and the amendment. Mr. Kisson-Yang, President. The internet is fluxed with information. If you use the mobile phone, you can easily access indecent and objectionable, violent, and even on a major video sharing platform, you'll find violent and pornographic clips. Even if a video clip is classified as Class 2 indecent article, as long as you log in an account as somebody aged 18 or above, you will still have access to the article. Parents are concerned about the psychological impact on our young people. Now, at the moment, the mechanism is complaint-based and co-regulatory with the industry. But our concern is whether the OAT is doing proper gatekeeping. In the past 5 years, the administration received 14 complaints of suspected obscene and indecent articles. None of that resulted in conviction. And this year, 100 video clips were reported to the administration, and only 13 clips were ultimately classified as Class 3. The OAT seems to be too liberal. The problem is, even for video clips classified as Class 3, they are still accessible after a long time. We need to stop the circulation of harmful content. This is just a tip of an iceberg. The problem remains. We need to enhance the channel for complaint and inquiries so that members of the public will have a more convenient channel to lodge complaints. There have been calls for review of the Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance. 2 rounds of consultations were conducted by the government. There was majority support to enhance the step up penalties. However, no consensus has been reached on how the penalties should be raised and how new media should be treated. The government's earlier proposal is to enhance the administrative function of OAT, and the number of adjudicators will be increased from 500 to 1,500, but however, the figure stands at 750, and that in handling public's complaints against internet content, the code of practice has been revamped. It's been 9 years. There are measures to enhance the representativeness of OAT, be it increasing the number of adjudicators or shortening the term of office of adjudicators. These measures are not sufficient in protecting our children and adolescents from objectionable content. Now, this current term of government is proactive. They've done a lot in improving different pieces of legislation, such as Cap 572 and other legislation relating to fire safety and building management. So I think it's high time that we reviewed the ordinance as well, but there is a lack of consensus. I hope the current term of government can show some resolve. For example, in terms of the definition of obscene and indecent articles, more should be done to make sure that the platforms sharing videos are regulated and our children can be protected from the content. It is equally important to work on parents. We need to enhance family education. This is the first line. We need to have proper family education to pass on good family values and good family traditions. We need to train the trainers, so to speak. The government should set standards for family education. We should also work on schools. That means we should educate parents about the importance of family education, and we should make use of the internet to commend families that have good family education so that parents can become role models of their children, so that parents can teach children about the correct concept of gender relationship and keep our children away from, keep them from harm. Nowadays, we need to be empathetic towards our children. For example, the whole family can enjoy this Japanese drama together. It's about a 14-year-old girl becoming a mother. So through this Japanese drama, we can teach children about the proper values in romantic relationships. I support Ms. Maggie Chan's motion and Mr. Kenneth Leung's amendment.
Mr. Chan Pui-leung, thank you, President. Objectionable and indecent materials are circulated on the internet. We know this well. I thank Ms. Maggie Chan for moving this motion so that we have an opportunity to discuss reviewing the Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance so that we can protect children and young people, giving them a good environment. Internet and mobile phones are becoming more and more common, exposing young people to pornographic, violent, and bloody materials. If young people lack the ability to protect themselves from such objectionable information, they will be affected by such objectionable materials. In the past 5 years, the administration received 14 complaints about online videos. They are suspected to fall into Class 3, that is the obscene category. There are complaints that there are many online videos about violent and bloody materials. Only 1 out of 10 videos are obscene video. It had to be taken down. But then the video had been on the internet for 4 years, corrupting a lot of children and young people. So the administration should review the COIAO to see if it is moving with the times. The ordinance was enacted in 1987. It regulates the materials that are considered obscene and indecent. It has a classification system, including materials published online. The administration adopts a complaint-oriented approach and an approach to work with the industry in the control of obscene and indecent articles. This is a rather passive approach. There are online live streaming, online game streaming, spreading such information. The relevant law enforcement agencies should step up patrol and enforcement. They need to make good use of advanced technologies and enhance the penalty in order to clamp down on the circulation of obscene and indecent articles. The internet cannot be a world that is beyond the reach of the law. In Singapore, there is a legislative amendment that there should be a mechanism on the internet so that parents can decide what kind of materials are accessible to children. It is also defaulted to be the preset mode for children aged 18. There is also control of the time spent on the internet. A decade ago, the administration conducted public consultation in 2 phases of the ordinance. Some people were of the view that there should be a filter function on the internet, but then it wasn't mentioned in the subsequent review exercise. There was also a suggestion that the panel of adjudicators should be expanded to 1,500, but then it was not taken on board by the administration. Enhancing gender relationship is very important. Young people are curious about gender relationship and other information on the internet. I speak in support of Mr. Kenneth Leung's amendments of instilling a correct concept on gender relationship and proper values in children and young people. Parents and teachers should be given training, and there should be collaboration with the Family Council to step up publicity on family education. So teachers and parents can also influence young people and educate them on the correct values about gender relationship and using the internet correctly. So young people will have enhanced awareness in this regard. I so submit I speak in support of Ms. Maggie Chan's motion and Mr. Kenneth Leung's amendment. I so submit. Thank you, President. Mr. Adrian Ho. Thank you, President. I support Ms. Maggie Chan's motion. It's an era of information boom. There are a lot of different ways to spread information. We need to control the spread of obscene and indecent materials. I believe society has the judgment to protect themselves and their family members from such information. On the website of the OFNAA, the OAT Obscene Articles Tribunal was set up in accordance with the COIAO. So it is a gatekeeper for the entire society. It's come to my attention that there are 3 categories of the classification system, but they only target printed materials from the publisher or referral by magistracy. That is how objectionable the information is. So I think when the materials fall into the category of class 3 that is obscene, as long as they are not reported by the publisher of their own accord or there isn't any random check by the administration, then the publisher can publish such objectionable materials in the market. Hence the wide circulation in the community. So some magazines in newspaper kiosks, did publishers report such materials to the administration, or did the administration conduct random checks on some particular magazines in the community? I hope the administration will step up the checks on some particular magazines. For example, that is Oriental Heroes or Dragon Tiger Gate. The law enforcement agencies' efforts are key. If there are loopholes, the administration should plug the loophole. In accordance with the COIAO, the panel of adjudicators is appointed by the Chief Justice within a period of 3 years in order to ensure the standard conforms with that in society. The panel of adjudicators comprise members from all walks of life, irrespective of their age. There are also points to note or guidance notes in the classification function of the OAT. I believe it can be enhanced. For example, adjudicators should receive training. Training contents should be updated from time to time in order to give them more professional and updated concepts in order to enhance their judgment. Well, does it mean the public have an open mind in relation to the Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance? I think the administration can step up publicity in schools so young people and children will enhance their awareness against objectionable materials so they can better protect themselves and their friends. They can even join a panel of adjudicators in the future, and that will be conducive to the healthy atmosphere in society. I so submit I speak in support of the motion and amendment.
發言感謝
Mr. In Kong. Thank you. I speak in support of the motion of Ms. Maggie Chen. This is now a global problem. According to a research report, some syndicates in 2020, the flow of traffic can go up to 4.5 billion hits. So these are comparable to the figures for giants such as Google. They are getting such high number of hits because they would provide free content and they rely on data mining, ads, etc. for revenue generation. After reports were made by media and complaints were made by members of public, a platform has removed some clips that had included nude content, but the line is still relatively blurred. Many of the questionable contents have yet to be removed. As a platform that provides content, they should play a gatekeeper role in order to ensure members of the public's minds, especially those of children, would not be affected. We shouldn't allow for such information to be disseminated freely. Apart from the COIAO prohibiting distribution of obscene and indecent articles to children, we also have the Crimes Ordinance and other pieces of legislation that would set out some rules. But with the proliferation of pornography in the internet, there is seemingly nothing we can do. Children can make use of tablets and mobile phones to go on the internet. In this backdrop, even though filter softwares have been put in by parents, we cannot prevent dissemination of harmful information to children. We need to have platforms regulate themselves. In fact, the ISPA has issued a code of practice. However, with the proliferation of internet, the code of practice is practically non-existent. In 2023, the UK has released legislation to ask for platforms to comply with the relevant regulation, otherwise they will be punished. In Singapore, they also have an authority that would regulate strictly of online platforms, and they have in 2022 reform laws in order to strengthen controls against online platforms. If harmful content is identified, orders to remove such content can be issued to the relevant platforms. With the Obscene Articles Tribunal, in a case, Peter Yu, that is, while the clip does feature sexual act of involving a child, the person was only sentenced to 20 months of imprisonment, and the judge actually questioned whether the current punishment is enough. It is actually lower than that for theft and vehicular theft. The government has started consultations early on to review such legislation, but the problem is that there has not been any changes. The government did say that we would follow up on this, but unfortunately, we did not see any changes. With the proliferation of harmful content on the internet, the government must do something. I urge the administration to take action swiftly to review legislation. I so submit.
Mr. Ma Fong-Kwok, President. I thank Ms. Maggie Chan for moving today's motion. The motion involves two major issues. One is to review the existing legislation and see whether it is sufficient for the time we are in. Second is about driving changes in culture and also building good family values. Hong Kong's future depends on how clearly we can grasp the crux of these two issues. First of all, I agree that the COIAO needs to be reviewed. We have to see whether it is able to keep abreast with time and whether its coverage is enough. Maybe an update is due. The ordinance was entered into in 1987 to protect young minds from being poisoned by objectionable materials in the media. Now, at that time, media means the supplements to newspapers and also comics and so on. Now, with the advancement in technology and the earlier maturity of young people, the ordinance is outdated. 37 years on, there were consultations concerning amendments to the ordinance. Some minor amendments were introduced. However, the scrutiny standard has not been adjusted. Now, the government has collaborated with the HKISPA to roll out the codes of practice to prevent the publication of indecent contents. However, at this state and age, there is no way to prevent or even scrutinize the contents. Also, the standards are too relaxed, and there is a lack of definition. There is no definition to problematic exposure of body parts, and there are no power for the judge to order removal of contents. Now, in Taiwan, there is a clear set of rules to restrict problematic contents. For example, over-description of illegal activities like gambling, kidnapping, and so on. 2, excess description of suicidal process. 3, excess description of murder and gore contents. And 4th, over an excess description of nudity and sexual behavior and also human body parts. We should make reference to this set of rules. In the 1980s, the culture was still conservative. However, today, more objectionable values are being publicized. For example, minority sexual desire or sexual inclination. Should we publicize these private desire? In the conservative Chinese culture, we shouldn't have to resort to these means to tell the world that Hong Kong is liberal. The new generation needs to be protected from these harmful influences. Taiwan has the Children and Juvenile Welfare Ordinance. It sets out that guardians should prevent children and juvenile from having access to problematic websites and media. Now, this aligns with the second part of Ms. Maggie Chan's motion, that is enhancing publicity and public education to foster good family values, education, and tradition. Legislation is just a framework. It is not addressing the mind of people, while family is the place where the next generation is being nurtured. Now, there are lots of family-friendly activities held by the Education Bureau. We applaud this effort. Now we hope that we can keep working on this and keep publicizing good family values. I so submit. Mr. Tony Xie. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the motion moved by Ms. Maggie Chen, a G19 member, about reviewing the COIAO and encourage public education and publicity on building good family values, education, and tradition. And concerning the amendments moved by Mr. Kenneth LEUNG, also a G19 member, I also support it. I always emphasize that the government's governance must be up to date. We need to review updated regulations and regimes. The existing COIAO and the Obscene Articles Tribunal should be updated. They only addressed traditional media like newspapers, magazines, and comics. Concerning new social media platforms and also mobile phones and video clips, the tribunal lacks the power to regulate them. As a result, there is a lot of harmful contents slogging around on the internet. Now we need to review the scrutiny standard and also enhance the enforcement efforts of agencies. This includes harnessing AI, which can automatically detect harmful contents online. Law enforcement agencies must proactively regulate the service provided by internet service providers rather than conducting inspection on complaints. Some worry that by stepping up online patrol and enforcement, it would become a crackdown on information and speech freedom. Now, a lot of Western countries who brand themselves to be freedom fighters have enhanced their legislation to regulate online content. These include AI-generated images and also algorithms which would cause addiction among young people. On the other hand, Hong Kong is too liberal. There is no regulation at all. Besides obviously illegal content, there are many less than savory contents which would cause harmful effects on young people. For example, there are contents against traditional Chinese moral values. These are not illegal contents, but they are not in line or even against our traditional values. We can't just rely on the internet to behave. Like the motion says, we need to actively build up good family values, education, and tradition. We need to engage in public education and inculcate young people and children with good family values, including family harmony, filial piety, and also the responsibility to take care of your family members. President Xi says, no matter how time changes and no matter how life changes, we must adhere to the principle of building up family values, education, and tradition. We must maintain our family ties. Now, China is a country where people attach much importance to family values. However, since returning to China, we still lack a focus on this value. Now in school, teachers and parents focus too much on the academic achievements of young people rather than fostering traditional values. It leads to all sorts of problems. I hope this term of the government will resort to all means to enhance public education and family education among teachers and young people. We should all take an extra step to build up good family values. I so submit. Mr. Holden Chow. President, I speak in support of the motion moved by Ms. Maggie Chan. That is to examine and review the COIAO and encourage and promote public education and publicity on building up good family values, education, and tradition. I support the amendment as well. President, many members have given some very good views on the topic. Now, in July this year, I myself submitted an oral question on the regulation of indecent and obscene articles. Now, let me share some figures with you. If you just look at the figures, you might think that the government has done a good job. Now, as I said, first half this year, operations were conducted on social media platform. Among the 100 video clips complained, 13 were classified as Class 3 obscene articles and they were removed. According to the reply, since 2019 up to 2023, the number of prosecutions and convictions dropped from 50 to only 18, and 18 prosecution and conviction in 2023. Now, the figures seem to be telling you that there were some enforcement, but we were skeptical as to the adequacy of the level of enforcement, particularly given that there is a massive amount of information on social media platform and the landscape is always changing. The number of prosecution in 2023 was the lowest in the past 5 years, only 18. Now, compared with 50 in 2019, there was a significant drop. But the question is whether it means there are fewer obscene articles circulating on social media platform. I think the answer is obvious. It is quite the contrary. There are a significant number of indecent video clips online. So my first call to the government is to deploy additional manpower to enforce the law. Second, given the amount of technology we have today, can the government consider adopting AI or even generative AI to identify problematic contents that may be more efficient in dealing with the issue? Now, in terms of publication of indecent or obscene articles or the prevention of it, the government is only acting on complaints. But like other members said, it is too passive. We know this requires manpower, so maybe we need to harness the power of technology to identify harmful contents. There is another observation. As other members mentioned, we think the ordinance is outdated because when the ordinance was made, internet was not a thing. The targeted articles or the targeted means of publication were newspapers and magazines. Now, in this generation, we have the internet and we need to update the law. There are 3 classes. For example, Class 2 indecent video clips on social media platform. What should be the responsibility of the social media platform operator? It is still unclear. It is only natural because when the law was made, there was no internet. For Class 3 obscene contents, of course, they can be removed. They should be removed. But what about Class 2 indecent video clips? We need to review this. Lastly, according to the government's reply to my oral question, to my written question, the time required to remove the problematic video clips were not kept by the government. So the government should keep tab of the time required for removing problematic contents. At least we will know how much time is needed for the ISP to remove the contents. I so submit.
美芬議員。
Professor Priscilla Leung. Deputy President, I speak in support of the motion on examining and reviewing the COIAO. Deputy President, as we all know, only when our people is well can the country prosper. In the 20th Congress report, we are glad to see that the President Xi focuses on different values. It is said that we should promote traditional Chinese values, enhance the building up of good family values, family education, and family tradition. Now, writing on good family values, education, and tradition, I'd like to also talk about school values or school tradition. Because in mainland schools, they don't have orientation camps like ours. Now, speaking of COIAO, or obscene and indecent articles, we should not just focus on the adjudication or classification of articles. It is said that we should promote good family values and family education. I'm glad to see that the HYB is promoting them. But in 2014, according to a study, only 80% of parents nurture their children of the right family values. These 40% of parents have higher education backgrounds and with high income. So what challenges are you facing as a society? With AI, the moral values, cultural values, and our young children are being brainwashed in a fragmented manner. They don't analyze anymore. They don't have critical thinking. So these challenges pose threats to our traditional family values, and this is a challenge to humanity as a whole. There were children victims that were so young, and the parents sometimes don't think that the crime was as serious because they didn't grow up in an internet age. The kind of distribution of obscene and indecent articles is abhorrent, and these distributors sometimes become perpetrators when they grow up. If we don't solve the problem, then our family values would break apart. I think that the Education Bureau should publish textbooks on the concept on gender relationship and the right sexual values and a good family value. This is not just an issue to family, but society as a whole. Our country during the COVID faced difficulties, but with our right family values, we were united. I think that by the way our country reacts, this shows that we are united as one. We contribute to our family, we respect our elders, and we take care of them. This lowers the burden on the government. I think that the complaint system is rather passive, but it has to exist. I think that we should learn from the police. In 2022, they have an official WeChat application. That is the official program for people to take photos of illegal parking. I hope that there will be cross-country collaboration so that we can adopt technology to combat international obscene organizations, to that use children in sexual activities. This is a global issue. We have to save others and save ourselves. Next, Ms. Judy Chan. Thank you, Deputy President. Family tradition is an important part to our family values. Family education is also crucial. A good family education and family tradition will nurture the right values among our children and protect them from indecent information. So I thank Ms. Maggie Chan for moving the debate on examining and reviewing the COIAO, encouraging and promoting public education and publicity on building up good family values, education, and tradition. And the amendment moved by Mr. Kenneth Leung. Deputy President, with the prevalence of the Internet, there are different types of objectionable information on the Internet. This brings about challenges that we've never seen before. According to a study conducted last year by the HCA, it is found that over 50% of children have come across violent images, and over 40% of children have come across sexual information. 40% of children also, said that they continue viewing such articles and content. This study shows that this is not a family issue, but a social issue. So we have to face this problem squarely by rolling out concrete measures to build good values among the pillars of our society. Education system is also crucial in resolving the problems. Now, in terms of sex education, it seems that we are lagging behind. According to the 2022 study of the EOC on the implementation of sex education in schools in Hong Kong, over 50% of secondary school students said that there is insufficient sex education in secondary schools. This shows that we have to reform our education system to cater to the needs of the society and let our young people have a right gender relationship and value. Our young people and children are more exposed to indecent or objectionable information these days. This does not only affect their mental health, but also cause deviation. So we have to promote good family values, family education, and family tradition. With the advancement of technology, I think that there is room for us to improve our legislation. First of all, we have to define indecent and obscene. And we have to update our current definition to cater to the change in culture and moral standards. And also we have to establish an effective regulatory system to delineate the duty and responsibility of online platforms so that they are more proactive in assessing the content on their platform. Also, I think that we should introduce AI to identify potential indecent and obscene content and enhance the transparency of the adjudication so that members of the public have a deeper understanding of the classification process. Also, I think that we should regularly review and update the COIAO to make sure that it keeps up with the time and is able to cope with the issues. I hope that the government will continue to build up good family values, family education, and family tradition to build a better future for our next generation. I so speak in support of the motion. Next, Dr. So Chang-Wing. Thank you, Deputy President. The internet has brought about convenience to people, but there is a prevalence of sexual content on the internet. It's very easy for us to get access to obscene information, videos, and content. According to a study conducted by the ACA, some 40% of respondents who are children said that they have come across obscene content on the internet. I think that the problem will only get more serious. Also, the COIAO has been in operation for a number of years. There are loopholes that needs to be plugged. And the ordinance is still targeting film, newspapers, and articles. It does not regulate the content on the internet, and so I support the motion moved by Ms. Maggie Chan and the amendment moved by Mr. Kenneth Leung. The government stressed that the ordinance applies to the internet, but they also admit that there's too much content on the internet, so they rely on complaints. There is not much that the government can do. According to statistics over the past 5 years, the government has received only 14 complaints against foreign videos that is potentially Class 3 articles. In the first half of this year, we have received more complaints, but there are only 20 of such. Children are exposed to various obscene content on the internet. So I think that the complaint system or complaint-driven approach is not effective. The government have formulated a code of practice with the Hong Kong Internet Service Providers Association, asking the ISP, the Internet Service Providers, to remove obscene content. But this code of practice is self-regulatory in nature, and there is no penalty involved. So I think that the government should not rely on the old ways to regulate online obscene and objectionable content. They should set out legal requirements asking the ISP to adopt measures to verify the age of their users. Also, we should ask the ISP to provide online filtering service so that sex content can be filtered out for young users. We should also make use of AI to filter out indecent or obscene content. The government should also provide assistance to ISP. There are also other members who talk about the responsibility of parents and teachers in building up good values among our children and protect them from the first impact of obscene and indecent articles. And also, I think that there is not a clear definition of indecent or obscenity and indecency. As a result, the adjudicators of the OAT rely on their own standards, and sometimes the rulings is too subjective and controversial. I think that we should clarify the standards. I so submit.
Mr. Benson Luke, Deputy President, I would first like to thank Ms. Maggie Chan for moving this motion on examining and reviewing the COIAO. I also thank Mr. Kenneth LEUNG for proposing an amendment. I think it is very important to have ethics education for youngsters, and we need to instill correct family values in them. with advanced technologies, we have online good and harmful content. In the growth of youngsters, they are easily influenced by the information they receive. If they receive harmful content for a sustained period of time, it can definitely impact their development. The COIAO is like a firewall for those below 18 to filter out content. Unfortunately, the COIAO is updated. It does not really effectively regulate the content online. And we have had arts and books being classified as obscene or indecent articles that were controversial. We are now in an AI era, but we are still adopting a complaint-driven approach. It is an outdated approach. The COIAO is like a software that has not been updated for a long time. It does not keep abreast with the times, and thus often children will be affected by the bugs. And as a famous Chinese saying says, we need correct family values in order to have a prosperous society. In 2022, President Xi actually said we need to construct civil values, promote the good family values in China. And we need to make sure we instill ethics in the children of China. So we really need to implement instilling good family values in children. And one way of doing this would be updating the COIAO, or at least we should commence the review. We have different deceptions, nude chats, and so on in the first half of 2023, according to the police's figures. For the youngsters that were deceived for nude chat, there were 417 of them, so it's 42% of the total number of such cases. We have 24 other harassment cases. The youngest victim was 9 years old. Not only were children deceived, they even became the fraudsters themselves. We have seen more and more youngsters engaging in such crimes. We have also had children become victims of deep fake photos. So apart from enhancing legislation, we need to do more to instill the right values in youngsters. I can see the government has taken some steps in 2024 policy address. The Home and Youth Affairs Bureau will work with the Family Council to hold the Good Family Awards and promote family values. And in fact, I have also participated in the first Women and Family Summit. These are important in the instilling of good family values. We also need to instill ethics of children through these. Parents are the first teachers of children, so we need to start with family education in order to make sure children develop in the right way. So I speak in support of Ms. Maggie Chan's motion and the amendment proposed by Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you. Ms. Yong Ho Yan. Thank you. Deputy President, I speak in support of the motion. In recent years, we have seen rapid developments in social media. We have seen much harmful content on the internet. It has really harmed children as well as families in general. With children being exposed to harmful content, parents are very worried too. And in fact, many different stakeholders have expressed concern about this, as early as 15 years ago, there were already suggestions to review the COIAO. There were 2 rounds of consultations. It was over a decade ago. And the proposals included having definitions of obscene and indecency, enhancing the functions of the obscene articles tribunal, etc. But these proposals have yet to be implemented still. The government has to do more. In other jurisdictions, we have seen a more proactive approach being taken to regulate such content. For example, in the UK, in 2017, they amended legislation to make sure an age verification system is installed on websites to make sure such content is not made available to adults. On 26th of October last year, there was also an online safety bill that was passed in the UK that would remove illegal contents in relation to terrorism, exploitation of children, hate crimes, as well as fraud. So this is to protect children going on the internet. This can also prevent children from being exposed to such content on websites. In Australia, there was also an authority that was regulating foreign websites that would provide pornographic content. They would prevent visits to such websites for children. So we can see how other jurisdictions have been doing to prevent children from being exposed to such content. I urge the administration to refer to the practices of other jurisdictions to more effectively prevent children from being exposed to such content. Education is another approach. How can we do better in family education as well as enhance publicity? And it is as Ms. Maggie Chen said, we need to enhance the role of family education. We can also enhance awareness of parents in relation to digital literacy so that they are more resilient against harmful content. In fact, in Taiwan, the iWin network, they also have a filtering software that is available for free that would help parents filter content for children. How can we make good use of our INT developments to have, for example, a browser or a child-safe browser specifically, so that it is more transparent about the children's browsing history, so that parents know what their children are seeing. So we should refer to the practices of overseas jurisdictions, have a multi-pronged approach. We will review the COIAO. We need to review the definitions of obscene and indecent. We also need to review whether the education mechanism is still up to date. Regarding number of educators or the membership, the Secretary did mention whether we can review such. Some members also mentioned using AI for this. I think in future we have to think about how to incorporate elements of Chinese culture in the classification process. Many big data models make use of foreign information. It does not take into account Chinese cultural elements. So if we are using technologies in future, I hope that Chinese cultural elements can be incorporated. For the government's part, how can the government work with the education sector, parents, and children welfare organizations to make sure the network is safe for children? That is what we have to think about. Thank you. Mr. Lo Chung-hung. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank Ms. Maggie Chen for moving the motion on the COIAO. In 2008, the first round of consultations were done. In 2015, some proposals were given by the government, and it was talked about again in 2019, but not much has been done. It does not keep up with the times. The legislative intent is to prevent children from being exposed to harmful content. What are obscene and indecent articles? when such articles are distributed to people under 18, such content would include violent, depraved, and repulsive content. So that is the legal definition, but often people would say the legal definition is somewhat subjective. There are some ethics standards that are socially acceptable, but it also depends on what the person is thinking subjectively. I think the Obscene Articles Tribunal should have clearer guidelines so that there won't be too lax or too stringent judgments made. For example, Murakami Haruki's novel was ruled indecent. This is not conducive to the status of Hong Kong being a center for international cultural exchange. But of course, we don't want children to be exposed to harmful content either. Mr. Kenneth Leung proposed an amendment on instilling a correct concept on gender relationship. And I think this relates to sex education. And I think that would relate to what Ms. Maggie Chen said about building up good family values, family education, and family tradition. Parents are the first teachers of children for sex education, but there are no comprehensive guidelines available for their teaching. Why I'm suggesting this? Because for the Form 3 subject that will teach sex education, that has really caused extensive discussions in the public. They talked about the badminton part, but I think the discussion is not exactly conducive. What I want to say is that on a policy level, there is a comprehensive mechanism to promote family values. This is a framework. And we are no longer using the framework before in 2007 for sex education. Should we have a new framework then? And for parents, I think sex education should be done early on. They shouldn't be embarrassed. Apart from talking about sex organs and the reproductive process, we need to make sure children have the right attitude to sex, and they need to know how to protect themselves and practice safe sex. And there are surveys about children having sex for the first time. We need to prevent children from having sex too early on, and we need to make sure they practice safe sex, and they need to make sure they should not have that many sex partners. We should be advocating for such. And these are studies that have been done before. I do support the use of filtering software or report making. But if we rely only on such, in reality, it's not going to be effective. But as a parent, once we see our children being exposed to such content or seeing such content, how should we react? Should we tell them the content is disrespectful to women or such content is deviant? We need to tell children the right values, and I think we should start with family education. I speak in support of the motion. Thank you.
Dr. Junius Ho, Deputy President, today's motion is very interesting. I applaud Ms. Maggie Chan for mentioning in her motion that we need to build up good family values, family education, and family tradition. We need to do better in terms of public education and publicity. This is the software side of things. In terms of hardware, we need to examine and review the Control of Obscene and Indecent Articles Ordinance, or COIO. These two complement each other. When we consider changing the law, we need to think about the objectives, the KPIs, and the impacts on society. We have to have the tool and also have the objective. Mr. Kenneth LEUNG embellished the motion by mentioning that we need to instill a correct concept on gender relationship and proper values in children and young people. The COIO exists to protect a new generation where the mind is still young and malleable. We need to inculcate them with the good values. Garbage in, garbage out. When you give them the wrong values, when the sapling is not planted upright, then it will grow up tilted. Now, in National Security Ordinance of the PRC, it sets out that we have to guard against objectionable thoughts in society. Freedom and liberty is not everything. Harmful impact would jeopardize a child's growth. That's why in an ancient moral story in China, a mother moved 3 times to give the best growing environments for her child. Now, the COIAO is like an umbrella shielding young people from harmful stuff. It is like a guiding rod. The rod would guide young people and steer them away from the depravity in the world. On the surface, the COIO regulates films, movies, magazines, and so on. Yes, this is the tool, but the spirit behind it is the shaping of ideology. Sometimes there are sugar-coated pill. I called it DIE, die. It means diversity, inclusiveness, and equality. The slogan is glorious, but it is a sugar-coated pill which distorts the correct value of genders. Some people use these values to promote legalization of same-sex marriage. Other people in society are too afraid to speak up because of the DIE. It sounds very legit, but it is a dead end. Deputy President, I thank Maggie for moving this motion. Her motion focuses on the COIO, but the implication is deeper. As Kenneth said, we need to instill a correct concept on gender relationship. Man is man, woman is woman. You can't call a man your mother. In some society, the concepts of mother and father is lost. What kind of family value is this? That's why I applaud today's motion. I fully support it. When we approach this issue, we have to take a macro perspective. I so submit. Mr. Chu Kwok-keung, thank you, Deputy President. I thank Ms. Maggie Chen for moving the motion and Mr. Kenneth LEUNG for the amendment. It gives us the opportunity to debate on the merits of reviewing the COIO. As a primary school principal, I'm concerned about the impacts on young minds brought about by obscene and indecent articles. It is undeniable that students can have easy access to problematic materials on forums and social media platforms. These include anime, comics, video clips, and novels. According to surveys, addiction to these problematic materials would weaken the values on gender relationship among young people and lead to criminal behaviors. Whenever I saw malleable minds fall prey to these indecent articles, I would be greatly saddened. Now, the CLIO regulates the publication and display of indecent articles and obscene articles in Hong Kong. However, in terms of online materials and also the complaints mechanism, the government has always been passive. According to the government figures in July, in the past 5 years, in terms of complaints, prosecution and conviction, the number was very low. It goes contrary to the situation where there is sloshing, there is indecent materials sloshing on the internet. Now, we need regulation. On the other hand, the statue of David and also the famous work of Haruki Murakami were classified as indecent article by the tribunal. We became an international laughingstock. No wonder some people say that the tribunal is regulating things that it shouldn't regulate. Every time the tribunal would remain fixed in its own ways. Now, we need to build up good family values, education, and tradition. We need to review the scrutiny mechanism and also step up inspection. At the same time, we need to enhance digital literacy and family education. We need to inculcate young people with the right values and good sex education. We have to prepare them to become resilient against problematic contents. Now, in many subjects, there is sex education, but the ratio is too low. Some schools even skip these curriculums. Now, if both teachers and parents think that sex education is not important, then wouldn't we be encouraging young people to find what they want to know online? Now, I hope that society can show determination to reform ourselves. We need to strengthen sex education in schools and at home. We need study, and we need to reform the sex education curriculum. We need to nurture mutual respect among the two genders. This is an important topic, I so submit. Ms. Connie Lam. Deputy President, I support the motion moved by Ms. Maggie Chen and also the amendment. The last revision to the COIO was 20 years ago. It is out of date. It is the time to examine and review the ordinance. The ordinance alone is insufficient in providing the right guidance for young people. We need to take a multi-pronged approach to review the regulatory regime for online contents as well as improper materials on overseas websites. There are lots of problematic materials on social media platforms. Young people have low awareness to online security. They fall victim to these contents. According to the police, last year alone, there were 900 scam cases against young people involving extortion with nude photos. Nude photos shared by young people were sold online in public. In the end, the victim became targets of online bullying. It caused permanent harm to the victim. Now, sometimes the problematic contents would be live streamed. There is no way to control that. Now, there are inspection in terms of physical broadcasting of films and articles. For these traditional means, the articles would be submitted to the tribunal for classification. However, for live streaming and online social media platform, once the material is uploaded, there is no way to control them. Now, sometimes these social media platforms became virtually porn sites. We need a more comprehensive regulatory regime. For example, we need to require operators of social media platform in Hong Kong to establish a vetting mechanism to screen out gore and sexual content. For overseas websites, we need to adopt new technology. For example, we can trace the IP address of the website. Now, we can require these websites to authenticate the age of the viewer. Young people are naturally curious about sex. That's normal. I think everyone here has gone through that phase. However, in Hong Kong, most families think that sex is a taboo. Now, recently I heard from a program on the radio. Young people ask their mother, they didn't have any wet dreams, so does it mean that they were impotent? Now, this shows that there is a lack of sex education at home. On the other hand, families and parents in Western countries openly discuss sex with their children. Now, if parents are reluctant to talk about this subject with young people in an objective manner, then young people would turn to other sources for knowledge. We can make reference to Singapore. The Singaporean government regularly organize workshops to publicize the importance of online safety and sex education for children and young people. It helps young people to establish a healthy habit of internet surfing. Now, this is the joint responsibility between schools, teachers, and parents. Reviewing the COIO is the first step. We need to establish a comprehensive safety net. We're not trying to ban young people from having contact with these information. The problem is, the point is we have to help them distinguish between right and wrong and help them grow healthily. I so submit.
郭玲麗議員。
Ms. Lillian Kwok. Deputy President, I thank Ms. Maggie Chen for moving the motion on examining and reviewing the COIAO, encouraging and promoting public education and publicity on building up good family values, family education, and family tradition. I also thank Mr. Kenneth Leung for moving the amendment. Children is the future of our society. Good family values and family education can allow our children to grow up healthily so that we can nurture pillars for society. I have the following views. Deputy President, I think that the society cannot accept behavior that impact the mental health of our children. So in 1987, we enacted the COIAO regulating violence, depravity, and repulsiveness content. And OAT was established to prohibit the publication of obscene and indecent articles. With the advancement of technology and the emergence of the internet, the ordinance and the regulations cannot keep up with the time anymore. A lot of young people are able to access objectionable information online very easily. Objectionable content does not only mean indecent or obscene articles or content, but also information that threatens national security. On YouTube, we can still search the national anthem of Hong Kong. And when we search such keywords, we see videos promoting the black cloud violence. In other countries, they have enacted new laws and policies to deal with the issue. UK in 2023 enacted the Online Safety Act, and they have also established regulators. In 2015, Australia establish a commission to regulate obscene and indecent articles. Our country also has an online department to combat illegal act on the internet. So I think that the government should review our internet safety and enact legislation. By enacting legislation, we can not only protect our country, but also make sure that our children will not be affected by objectionable content on the internet. Mr. Kenneth Leung also touches on gender relationship. As we all know, this is very important. I thank the government for taking aboard a lot of our views, and sex education has been included in our school curriculum. I think that the government should continue to improve the curriculum and content so that young people can build a correct concept on gender relationship and sex values. Family education is equally important because good family education will instill good values in our children. So I agree with Ms. Maggie Chen that we have to build up good family values, family education, and family tradition. Our country, in the Promotion of Family Education Act, says that we have to promote the healthy development of our young people. And they have also set up a framework of family education. I thank the government for taking on board our suggestions 2 years ago. I already said that we have to improve the family education framework. The government has already set up such a framework. Now, in terms of objectionable information, we should include that in the family education framework. We should instill a correct concept on gender relationship and sex among our children. Deputy President, with good sets of values and concepts, we won't have to worry about our children being susceptible to objectionable information or harmful content online. By that, we can also protect our country and city. I so submit. Next, Dr. Hui Simon Lee. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank Ms. Maggie Chen for moving the motion on encouraging and promoting public education and publicity on building up good family values, education, and tradition. Also, Mr. Kenneth Leung moved amendments on instilling a correct concept on gender relationship in children and young people. This is in line with the direction of the Family Council and the committee that I am in. The committee is responsible for promoting new curriculum and to improve the direction of our curriculum at schools. Since the rolling out of the curriculum from primary 1 to secondary 6, schools have to include value education in their teaching, and this has the wide support of the community. In 2021, we rolled out a pilot education framework setting out that we should make use of traditional Chinese tradition or values as part of the school curriculum. Content such as moral education, life education, sex education, media and information literacy are also included in the framework. We have rolled out 12 values that we should teach children, including respect of others, sense of responsibility, national identity, integrity, kindness, law-abidingness, hard work, filial piety, and so on. Mr. Kenneth Leung said that we should instill a correct concept on gender relationship and proper values in children and young people. And this is in line with the motion moved by Ms. Maggie Chen. Good family values and family education, as well as family tradition, are crucial parts of our Chinese culture. In fact, moral education, ethics education, sex education, media and information literacy education are important. Under the value education framework of the Education Bureau, such tradition is incorporated into our school curriculum. There is also online teaching materials for our teachers. But in order to achieve the goals set out in the motion and the amendment, we should not just rely on the Education Bureau. The entire community should work together to offer a healthy environment for our young people to grow up. I so submit, Ms. Nixie Lam. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank Ms. Maggie Chan for moving the motion. There are media reports on obscene and indecent articles. This does not only affect the values of our minors, that may also give rise to sex offenses that undermine and negatively affect our culture. Social media and instant messaging applications are full of indecent and sex content. These days, every children has a mobile phone, but they are not protected against such articles on the internet. There are 45 cases of sexual harassment against children, victims aged between 12 and 16. The youngest victim is only 9 years old. Apart from these reported cases, I believe that there are incidents that are not identified. We should protect children from being harassed or violated. Now, the COIAO mostly regulate film, newspapers, and articles, and I think that the effectiveness is not great. I think that we should make reference to the Online Safety Act of the UK to ask the internet service provider to shoulder responsibility by establishing age authentication system to ban terrorism, bullying, and sexual content on the internet, so that our children will not be exposed to such articles. Parents should also shoulder responsibility of family education. In the 20th Congress, it is said that we should promote social harmony by promoting good family education. Schools should also incorporate correct concept of sex into their curriculum to build a firewall for our children. Also, on government applications, maybe we should incorporate information that educate our children. So we should offer a hotline for our children so that when they come across indecent and obscene articles, they can make a report online instead of telling their parents or teachers, so that these children will not be harmed because they are too afraid to make a report. With the overload of information these days, it's impossible for us to ban all indecent and obscene content, but we have to work together to create a safer environment for our children. I so speak in support of the motion and amendment.
Does any other member wish to speak? Ms. Maggie Chan, you may now speak on the amendment. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank and support Mr. Kenneth Leung for his amendment. His amendments have enriched my motion. I'm pleased to see that we are working hand in hand to drive the review and enhancements to the COIO, as well as the effort to build up good family values, education, and tradition, while adhering to upholding our freedom. And concerning prevention of the publication and circulation of unhealthy and indecent information on the Internet, as mentioned by Mr. Kenneth LEUNG, at present, the enforcement of the law relies on complaints made as well as collaboration with the net. Now, according to the Office for Film, Newspapers and Article Administration, between January and August this year, the number of scrutiny conducted amounted to 223,000. However, there were only 79 complaints received. 200,000 scrutinies were conducted, but there were only 70-something complaints. Now, over the past 3 years, there were only 86. Ms. Chen, please speak on the amendment only. Yes, I'm speaking on the point of indecent information on the Internet. Now, the figures do not reflect the reality. Now, as mentioned by Mr. Kenneth LEUNG, 93% of the respondents do not understand how obscene articles on the Internet are regulated. And also, most respondents think that there is underwhelming law enforcement and patrol. Now, while urging the government to enhance the COIO, I also agree with Mr. Kenneth LEUNG that legislation alone is not sufficient to protect young people from being harmed by problematic content. We need to build up good family values, education and tradition, and promote public education on this. On correct family values and also correct forms of expression of feelings to the other sex, and also interaction between peers. I do see that the government has been promoting the healthy growth of body and mind among young people. The SAR government also mentioned that we need to embrace the rich culture of our country. I'm pleased to see that there is an election of outstanding families in Hong Kong. I support the amendments moved by Mr. Kenneth LEUNG, and we need to encourage public education and publicity in society. As I said in my opening speech, the COIO need to be reviewed. It is long overdue. Now, this is supported by the figures I quoted. The public has questions on the representativeness and the standard adopted by the tribunal. Now, once again, I thank Mr. Kenneth LEUNG for moving the amendment. I thank members for their views. I urge members to support my motion and Mr. Kenneth LEUNG's amendments. I so submit.
經濟發展局
Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development. President, I would like to thank Ms. Maggie Chen again for moving the motion and Mr. Kenneth LEUNG for moving the amendment. I also thank members for putting forward some ideas and suggestions on the control of obscene and indecent articles, as well as on family education and publicity. In the following, I will give a consolidated response to the views expressed by members. First of all, on the review of the COIO and the definition of obscenity and indecency. The government completed a two-stage public consultation on the review of the COIO, Cap 390, in 2009 and 2013. After consolidating the views received, the government briefed the panel on information technology and broadcasting on the legislative amendments and the administrative measures to improve the regulatory regime of the COIO in 2015 and 2019, respectively. The results of the two consultation exercises showed that there was no public consensus on the definition of obscenity and indecency. As different people have different values and perceptions of things, which may change over time and with social development, it is not feasible to set out detailed definitions of obscenity and indecency under the COIAO. Moreover, the definitions may need to be updated frequently and may cause confusion to the industry and the public. I've heard divergent views from members on the composition and work of the OAT, Obscene Articles Tribunal. As I pointed out in my opening remarks, under the existing system, the panel of adjudicators comprises people from all walks of life to reflect the community standards of morality, decency, and propriety. The COIAO provides that any person who is above 18 has ordinarily resided in Hong Kong for a period of no less than 7 years and is proficient in written English and Chinese is eligible for becoming an adjudicator. When there is a need to convene a hearing, an adjudicator will be randomly selected by the OAT through a computer system from the panel of adjudicators, and the adjudicator will not be reappointed for a period of 12 months after discharging their duties for the OAT. The arrangement gives people of all ages and from all walks of life an opportunity to participate in the work of the OAT and at the same time avoids duplication of hearings within a short period of time, thus allowing more adjudicators to participate in the classification of articles. In light of public opinion, the judiciary put in place a series of administrative measures in 2019 to enhance the representativeness of the tribunal, such as increasing the number of adjudicators participating in hearings from 2 to 4 under normal circumstances, increasing the total number of adjudicators from 500 to 750, and reducing the maximum term for adjudicators from 9 years to 6 years. Since the debate in 2019, the tribunal has not received any application for review or appeal regarding classification of articles in the past 3 years. This shows that the standards adopted by the tribunal is largely in line with that of the society and that the arrangement is effective. We will continue to listen to the people's views and review the implementation of the ordinance, conduct inspection, and follow up on complaints. Apart from enforcing the ordinance, the government attaches equal importance to publicity and public education. To protect children and young people from the harmful effects of obscene and indecent articles, the OFNAA has been working closely with the relevant trade to organize various publicity campaigns and educational activities to teach our children and young people how to use the internet properly. In terms of industry collaboration, on top of the Code of Practice jointly formulated by the government and the Hong Kong Internet Service Providers Association, the OFNAA sent a letter to various social media platforms and members of the Hong Kong Internet Service Providers Association members in June this year, asking them to comply with the ordinance and the Code of Practice, as well as to take proactive measures to prevent children and young people from accessing obscene and indecent content by, such as further filtering and removing objectionable content on their platforms, drawing up community rules to prevent the spread of objectionable messages, and offering protection measures to children and young users. On educational activities to promote the ordinance, the OFNAA has organized targeted activities for different stakeholders, including schools, parents, students, and the general public, so that children and young people know that they should stay away from obscene and indecent articles, regardless of where they are, to nurture their character. The OFNAA will continue to organize school activities, including organizing 200 events on the promotion of the ordinance every year, as well as the right way to use the internet. These events include seminars, workshops, roving exhibitions, as well as 90 educational short dramas and performances. We want to nurture a right sets of values in our students. As at the end of September, the OFNAA has completed 70% of the activities planned for the year. The first educational short drama has been performed at school earlier this month. We'll continue to take forward the rest of the activities. The OFNAA will step up collaboration with schools by by such as organizing briefing session for primary and secondary school principals in the 2024-25 academic year so that we can join hands with schools in helping students develop positive values. We have issued invitations to primary and secondary schools. We target to conduct 3 online briefings in the coming 2 months. The first online briefing will be held in November. Apart from this, we will organize roving exhibitions at popular shopping centers to raise people's awareness on the ordinance and to promote the message to young people about rejecting objectionable information online. Families play a crucial role in the education and the growth of children and young people. In recognition of this, the OFNAA has organized promotional and educational activities specifically for parents. These include lectures on proper use of the internet, workshops on filtering software in collaboration with nonprofit making organizations, and thematic webinars on preventing internet addiction and saying no to harmful online information. These activities aim to encourage parents to help their children select appropriate leisure publications, video games, and websites, while reminding them to pay attention to whether the content their children encounter is obscene or indecent. On top of that, they focus on educating children and young people about the importance of healthy information and strengthening their ability to reject harmful content. The OFNAA also engages directly with our primary target audience through various student activities. These include contests such as Healthy Mobile App Sticker Design Competition, Slogan Creation, and Coloring Contests, the Healthy Student Video Contest 2024, and the Healthy Chinese Public Speaking Competition. We've initiated promotional efforts for these competitions and will conduct several workshops in the coming months to enhance students' understanding of these issues. Furthermore, the authority recruits secondary school students as ambassadors through the Healthy Information Student Ambassador Scheme to help promote messages about safe and healthy online practices. In addition to educational activities promoting the ordinance, the government is actively advancing information literacy education. The Education Bureau provides a learning framework to school, enabling students to use information and communication technology effectively and ethically. This empowers them to protect themselves and respect others in both real-life and online environments, helping them to reject inappropriate messages and unreasonable behaviors on social media. Over the past 2 years, the Education Bureau has also collaborated with the police to publish the Youth Crime Prevention Booklet, covering topics such as online dating risks, sextortion, and ways to prevent related crimes, as well as support services. These efforts aim to enhance students' awareness of the law, critical thinking skills, and self-protection capabilities. On top of that, the police have established the Cyber Defender webpage to provide relevant information on digital literacy. In addition to educational activities related to the ordinance and information literacy, members also suggest instilling correct values regarding gender relationships in children and young people. The Education Bureau has integrated learning elements related to values and sex education, such as moral and ethical education, life education, law education, and the importance of self-care and healthy gender relationships into the curricula for primary and secondary schools. The Department of Health also regularly holds sex education seminars and provide individual health education counseling, as well as online sex education resources to help students and parents understand changes during puberty, including aspects of physical and mental health. Furthermore, it emphasizes the importance of providing sex education within the family. Department of Health offers school-based health promotion programs through the Adolescents Health Program, targeting students, parents, and teachers to promote and improve adolescents' physical, mental, and social health. These programs include specialized discussion on various topics such as healthy use of internet and sex education. At the family level, the HYAB promotes core family values through the Family Council. The theme of the Family Council promotional campaign for the 2024-25 is Family Values Are Cherished Legacy. Through various activities and projects, it aims to promote good traditional family concepts and virtues to the public. The HYB and the Family Council have also launched a new 5-year family education promotion plan this month to fund nonprofit family education projects initiated by the community, further promoting family values to enhance family happiness and social harmony. The Education Bureau has also established the Parent SmartNet webpage for parent education information and a committee for family school cooperation. enabling parents to support their children's physical and mental development more effectively. Today's society is filled with various types of information, some of which may contain obscene or indecent content. The purpose of the ordinance is to protect children and young people from the negative influence of harmful materials, while also recognizing the importance of safeguarding the flow of information and freedom of speech. Under common law, obscenity and indecency are relative concepts rather than absolute ones, varying with time, place, culture, individual, and different social classes and age. In light of this, educating the next generation to enhance their ability to discern information is more effective than merely blocking objectionable or inappropriate content. This enables them to choose information that suits them in a rapidly changing social environment and moral standards, promoting healthy and balanced development of both body and mind. We also encourage the public to continue to report obscene and indecent articles to the relevant authorities through various channels. Upon receiving complaints, the relevant departments will definitely take appropriate follow-up action. Lastly, the Hong Kong SAR government will continue to actively engage in various promotional and public education initiatives to help children and young people establish correct values. I would like to thank the members once again for their invaluable comments, and I hope to call upon the general public, including the members here, to work together with us to promote and provide a suitable environment for the healthy growth of our next generation. President will submit.
委員
I now call upon Mr. Kenneth Leung to move an amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Kenneth Leung's amendments be passed. With those in favour, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Ms. Maggie Chan, you still have 2 minutes, 21 seconds to reply, then the debate will come to a close. Ms. Maggie Chan. Thank you, President. I'm grateful for the 27 members who have spoken on my motion today. Their views were invaluable. Also thank the CEDB for giving me a great reply. However, the stance taken by the government is still the old stance, that is the 2019 position taken by the government. The government hasn't taken into account the changes in the internet landscape. The Secretary promised to take on board our views and conduct a study and ask us to support them. However, I don't think we can afford to repeat the process of 2019 when there was a consultation but no actions taken. So I hope members will support my motion and urge the government to take actions rather than endlessly consulting the public. Now, this term of the government is one with actions. We have the CEDB officials here, but we need an all-hands-on-deck approach to set a timetable for amending the law. So we need the EDB and the HYAB as well as other bureaus to provide top-down steering. Now, if my motion is passed, then it would be a clear call for the government to take actions. So I implore members to support my motion. I now put the questions to you that Ms. Maggie Chan's motion as amended by Mr. Kenneth Leung be passed. With those in favour, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion as amended passed. The Council is now adjourned until 11 a.m. on Wednesday, 6th of November 2024.